you are not, there's no business running in Kampala city right now. Where we are at UBC, if you moved out of the studio right now, the streets are empty. But on a normal day, you would have women selling several products along the street here. Exactly. And because those people are now home and they have been affected in that way, the situation created a vulnerability for them, unlike other people. So the president asked the office of the Prime Minister, together with the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, to devise, to look at the categories of people and devise ways through which they can be supported. Okay.
One of the issues out there in the public is that you negated local council structures or administration from this business. And people feel that it might not be a flawless, it might not be a good system. Which is flawless because presumably the people who know who the vulnerable are excluded from this exercise, and they're using technical people. Mr. Mugabe here from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, who wakes up in the morning, goes, sits under some AC somewhere in the ministry, and does not know what's actually happening down in the villages. And so this is what people think, that by excluding local council chairpersons, the elected leaders of the people who know who they are, they think government is not willing to give them the money, or it's a process that everybody will cry foul after it's been done.
First of all, it's not true that the local council leaders are excluded from this system. It's not true. If you know how government works, I said we are dealing with the taxpayers' money. So the issue of accountability is number one. And the accountable officer at that level, municipality division, is the town clerk. So we said the town clerk will be the lead. He will not work alone. He works with the systems. The town clerk has a team of officers under him. He has ward supervisors. He has all CDOs, community development officers. He has labor officers who work down through the process to the village level. And by the time you get to the village level, you're already dealing with the LCs. So that's how government works, that there has to be somebody accountable. Because we are going to send money, and somebody has to be held accountable for those lists. We can't start holding everybody in the community accountable for the lists, for example. And more so, you wouldn't, if you're dealing with accountability at that level, it would be very hard to cascade down to the LC. That's why we said, let's have the town clerk take lead. He works with his team, including LCs. They come these lists. By the way, these people we are talking about, when they come to work here in town, they register with the town clerk's office. One, either to get a license to work. Two, they have associations as they lead them. When you go to a border stage, they have their lists of who works at that particular stage. And these lists end up normally in the office of the town clerk. So the town clerk already has a database in his office. We said, let's draw from this. But most importantly, let's validate it. And validating means take it back to the community, show them that, you know, members, the last time we registered, these are the people we have in this village. So let's comb it together, see who is there, who is not there, who has moved, in terms of the categories we are targeting, who is not a taxi tote, who is not a taxi driver, who is not a saloon person. We clean it, then send it to the ministry for payment. That's the process. Unfortunately, that process, our people, instead of appreciating it, they got so emotional about it, especially in Kampala. Cleaning a list, finding a name that is not of a person who moved is not a crime. And that is the purpose actually it's meant to achieve.
Exactly.
That you look at it as a community member and tell your chairman, Nedda, ono Mugabe yavaawo dda, takyali wano. Oba Mugabe is no longer that needy. He doesn't fall in the category we are following this time around, so let's change. So that's what we expected communities to do. And I can assure you, in places outside Kampala, they have done it very smoothly. And already lists are coming in.
In places outside Kampala?
Outside Kampala.
Urban towns?
Other cities, other municipalities, they have done it smoothly. They have sat down as community members, as a village, because a village is not a big space. They have sat down and cleaned their lists and submitted for payment.
How many people are being targeted entirely?
Entirely, we are targeting 500 and
about 530.
About 500, just slightly above 500,000.
Okay,
500,000 actually.
Half a million people.
Yes.
I have a communication here from, it's a press briefing by the Honorable Minister, Betty Amongi Akena. And when you read it, point 7 specifically, I'll just read as it is, and then we talk about that. She says, let me also state that not all vulnerable persons are to be targeted at this particular point. The National COVID-19 Task Force on Cash Transfer provided a ceiling on numbers of persons to be reached per city or municipality and KCCA. These numbers are guided by the available funding and cannot for all vulnerable persons, even when they all fall in the same or listed categories. And I think now that is why it is. If it is about, well, I want it to come from you because you come from the ministry.
Yes.
According to the minister here, not all vulnerable persons, not everybody who falls in that category as vulnerable person is going to receive. How are you going to receive them?
Actually, if you look at the term vulnerable, almost everybody is vulnerable at this point. COVID has made us vulnerable, all of us, in different levels. But this particular lockdown that was pronounced by the president,
the 42-day lockdown.
Yes, the 42-day, created a special group of vulnerable persons. Those who earn daily within the urban areas. So when you're looking at vulnerable persons, you comb out. Say, yes, we have a large number of groups, but who are those who are most affected by this? Those who are not being allowed to go to town. You've seen police in running battles with these people.
We meet them every morning.
They're even ready to walk 10 kilometers and come to town. But police have said, no, stop. Please go back home. Stay safe. Don't crowd. Because you see, the town centers, the urban centers had become a super spreading arena for this virus. So government...
56% of the national load, I think, in the country is in KCCA, is in Kampala.
You can imagine that. Imagine if Chibo was still working up to now.
Would be at 70.
Would be at a very big trouble by now. Hospitals were getting full. And that's the trouble India found itself in. They didn't have a lockdown. The spreading was going on. Hospitals got full. And you know, with COVID, once your hospitals are overwhelmed, you're into trouble. Because you're not going to have oxygen to give to everybody. You're not going to have enough manpower to attend to each and every patient coming in with that kind of overwhelming power.
The rate of infection.
So you need to manage the spread of the disease bit by bit. And exactly that. And so far now, I went to a hospital, by the way. I had taken somebody to do a checkup during that peak period. And this hospital in the side of Nalia, that side, was overwhelmed by people. And I went back with the same person to do another test 2 weeks back, and there was no crowd. So it is paying off already. So it is about managing crowds in the urban centers. So those people who are earning here daily need some support. And that's why we said, let's look at the street vendors, the food vendors. Yes, there are other people. We have had our colleagues, like the person with disabilities, saying, you know, we're also vulnerable, and we are not there. The older persons have said the same. But we have said, yes, it is true. No ministry can understand an issue of a person with disabilities, an issue of an older person, better than the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. But we said, yes, if we have those categories of people, the older persons, persons with disabilities, in the categories we mentioned, they will benefit. They will be enlisted. So that is the entire vision of the lists as they stand.
Okay, but I mean, I'm looking at myself as an LC chairperson of this particular village or cell, whatever it is, and I am listing vulnerable persons. What criteria do I have?
Would depend on the daily income in town, in urban centers.
Okay, so that's the criteria that I, Jagenda Semakola, chairman of Radio Uganda Village here in Nakasero, and need to know that Frank Mugabe is a hawker. Frank Mugabe is a taxi tout. Frank Mugabe is a food vendor in this arcade.
And they work in town.
And they work in
Kampala City.
Okay.
Yes.
I actually see a challenge, and I'm thinking because why? Yesterday I saw a lady on TV, and she's saying, "Look at me. I'm a young woman. I'm a young girl. Somebody impregnated me, left me with a baby. I am vulnerable. I not, now maybe she even doesn't have a job, but because the ministry or government is actually giving out money. Now, those guy is saying, I also need some money. I also need something. I am looking at her from that angle, and I'm thinking, can Mr. Mugabe, the chairman, LC1 of that village, negate and say, I will not include this girl on the list because I have not known her as one who walks to go to the saloon or to go and vend food in the market or something like that. And just because of that, shall we be able to conclude this and actually zero in to say, yes, people who qualify for this money are here and let them get the money?
One thing I want us to remember is that government has not closed. All the other programs are still running. Talk about the youth fund, talk about the women fund, talk about SAGE. All those programs are still running. So it shouldn't be like it's being portrayed that, you know, government has stopped all the other services and now focusing only on the 100,000 that has been promised to a particular group of persons. We need to differentiate that and explain it to the people. That, colleagues, this funding is for a specific category of people. Not very many, by the way, if you look at our figures.
500,000 people.
Exactly, 500,000 people. So the rest of us, let's concentrate on the other government programs that are still running. For example, the older persons, they are going to get their pay for these months. So why should an older person who's going to get this funding
struggle for this
bit? Because we said this lockdown created
a category
that is more vulnerable. I gave a live example of UBC Street here. Those who have been through the jam from UBC up here at Crested Towers to Garden City roundabout. When there is jam there are lots of vendors,
and hawkers,
fruits. Others are selling car accessories, all sorts of things, watches,
masks.
That everything. Group were declared vulnerable when the lockdown measures were instituted to decongest the urban centers. So we want to look at those for now. Send them the support. The others can always benefit through the other government programs that are still running.
Is there a particular number for villages, for example? Let's look at, you said the other urban centers have actually managed the problem. It seems like it's a problem here in Kampala. Now we look at the 5 divisions of Kampala. And do you have a specific number of how many for each division of Kampala? That if we go to Makindye, then we are targeting those who are most vulnerable now, I think, the most vulnerable in Makindye, and we have a specific cap of number.
Yes.
Is that so?
Yes, we have figures we issued out.
Okay.
It's quite a long list of all municipalities in the country, all cities, and even KCCA. So there are 2 pages of lists with figures. For example, if you say the Arua municipality, they have a figure they need to work within.
Okay.
KCCA, they have a figure within which they have to work within. So they are following that figure to do the updates of the lists.
Okay. For those that are set,
yes.
When do they start? When do you start the disbursements?
Yes.
I'm only looking because that particular trading center, rather municipality or town, urban center, whatever they are, and theirs are clean, they're done, and they shouldn't wait for Kampala to also get ready. I'm only thinking, when is the disbursement coming, and what is expected?
By yesterday,
yes,
we created an online system where the lists are dispatched. It's an online. So the town clerks in Makindye, once they are done with cleaning their lists, they just send it online, and it enters into a system that cleans it automatically. For example, we have been emphasizing the NIN numbers. That if Mugabe with NIN number AZ has already been entered, it will detect easily if I've tried to enter through another village, Mugabe with the same NIN number, and clean and knock you out.
There could be another Frank Mugabe, but you can't have the same NIN number.
You can't have the same NIN. So these lists have been coming in. By yesterday, the whole of yesterday, they came in so much, and that was our target, that by Monday, let the list start coming back to get us set to start sending out money. Because once for us, we have the lists at the ministry. We look at them once more to do that sort of cleaning and then dispatch to Post Bank, which works with Airtel and MTN to do the actual disbursement. And those processes
you send money to Post Bank.
Yes,
so
Post Bank is handling
with the telecom companies.
Exactly, because the system has already been in place. By the way,
okay,
we are using infrastructure that has been running, and therefore it's about the most critical bit is about the lists. And you see, this is why the community should appreciate government. We could have just told the town clerks to send us the lists as they are in their archives, but we said no. Let the communities first have a second look at those lists. They look at who should be there, and they agree and update them. Once they're updated, sent back. Once you send them to us, enter them on the system online, send to Post Bank, and e-cash is done, and money goes out. So we are still on course to start disbursements because we can't wait for all lists to come in, then say, let's click for everybody. We shall be doing the payments as the other lists come in.
Where are the local council ones in this whole exercise?
The local council ones are partners to the town clerk and his team.
Are they allowed to partner? Because there are people who say, oh, they are those that you've heard saying local councils were excluded from this exercise specifically. And I was talking to one and saying, okay, have you taken your list to, I was actually talking to my own chairman, have you taken your list to the town clerk? And the town clerk says, because you're a chairperson of a local village, please don't come. I want to know whether they're part of the process.
The LC1 should work in tandem with the town clerk. You see, if there is a leader of a particular exercise, you consult that leader before you do the exercise. So the LCs, once they had this announcement, it was upon them to get to their town clerk and say, we have had this. You're leading this exercise. Please provide guidance on how I should go about this exercise in my community. For example, where is the list they are saying you have? Where do you want me to display it? How do I engage with deleting and replacing names? That is the sort of guidance the LC should have sought from the town clerk from the start. Those who are smart and did that have had no trouble. Their exercise has gone on very smoothly. Those who thought they have had and now took it upon themselves to start the exercise, that's trouble. Because remember, we said the list has to come from the town clerk. It doesn't matter who is on the list that the town clerk has given you. What matters is that you've been given an opportunity to look at it and clean as a community and say, let's remove this person and replace with another person.
Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Mugabi. We'll just take a break and return and continue with the conversation here. Because we talk about the funds which we expect to start being dispersed tomorrow, according to the Prime Minister, as early as tomorrow, as late as Thursday. And we're just stopping. But when we come back from the break, I also want you to help me understand the display of the list. And because one, it is transparency. But secondly, when this list is displayed, wherever it's displayed, I actually do not know, whether in the village or at the town clerks, I do not know. But wherever the list is actually displayed, and I'm thinking, or I'm seeing Mugabe Frank who comes and the name is not on the list. A Jagenda Samakola who comes and the name is not on the list, and they're agitated. Then the next thing is either you tear the list because you say, Nangan vulnerable, Nangan take. Everybody thinks they're supposed to get, and everybody wants to get. I'm looking at those who look at their names and they can't find them on that list. Then the other thing would also be on the phone numbers. I have a number, it's my number, but it is not in my name, Frank Mugabe. It's in my uncle's name, it's my niece's name, or whatever that is. It's, those issues. I want you to help us understand how that is going to be done. We'll take a break and return.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Therefore, understanding this model.
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together. Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Well, a very good morning, and we continue with our Good Morning Uganda Extra. My name is Jagenda Semakola Ziksok, and we're talking about the COVID response on the disbursement of the relief aid to the vulnerable Ugandans, which exercise is supposed to start tomorrow. And joining us in studios is Mr. Frank Mugabe, the spokesperson from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. Here with us. Mr. Mugabe, yes. Before we went for the break, I'd posed one or two questions to you. Please respond to them.
Yes, you asked about the lists.
Cleaning them, verification and stuff like that.
Where does it happen?
Exactly.
This is supposed to happen at the village level. Because each village, depending on the numbers that we gave the area authority, each village was allocated a certain number within which to fill. So once they display these lists at the village level, then the team at that level, the ward supervisor, CDO, labor officer, even villages health teams, by the way, are part of this process. They work with the community members to clean up those lists, delete and replace accordingly. And by the way, it should be a seamless activity. If the community members in a certain area understand themselves, why should a chairman call a meeting to discuss water on a day and the meeting is come, and then on another day when you have a list to display for the neighbor person to benefit from the funding by government, the meeting, there is no order. I think we need to think about ourselves also as community members. You see, okubeera abantu nga ku kyalo kiina kye kitegeeza nti ffe tuli ba ku kyalo gundi kitegeeza mukolagana enkolagana yammwe
you know one another.
Exactly, you know each other, you understand each other, there is a way you behave. If somebody comes into your village and is behaving differently, you'll easily tell. You'll say, this person's behavior is not our village type. So you will investigate, and therefore even the cleaning of these lists should follow that decorum. Until you meet as village mates in the lead of the teams we have talked about, and clean your list smoothly, and do your job and submit. If you do that, you'll have saved yourself, by the way, time. You'll have enabled government extend services quicker to your people. Because for us now, at the ministry, we are only waiting. The more you delay, you talked about people tearing lists. Why should somebody get agitated to a level of tearing a list?
Because they've not
they have not seen their name
on the list.
Or they are seeing names that they think shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
But remember, we are giving you the same lists for the same purpose, that you help us identify who shouldn't be there and who should be there. Now, instead of doing what you're supposed to do, you're tearing a list and delaying the process. So we need, especially Kampala, allow me say this, especially Kampala, we need to get back to a level where we discuss with a sober mind. And our leaders have a role to play. I was seeing some councillors of Kampala addressing the media yesterday. This kind of, trying to take capital out of what shouldn't actually be a political capital activity is not good. As leaders, you elected the councillor, you elected the chairperson. Your role is to give guidance. It is you supposed to stand amongst people who are agitated and tell them, people, let's cool down. They have given us a list. Don't mind who is there. Let's look at the names one by one. As a leader, that's what I expected them to be doing. Say now, according to our list, these are the names. Do we know Mugabe is number one? Do we know Mugabe? Where does he stay?
And what does he do?
Is he a street vendor in Kampala? Yes. Okay, number one is okay.
We know him.
Let's go to number two.
Jagena Semakula.
What does he do?
He's a hawker.
He's a hawker.
In town, we know
Good
him.
stuff. Number three, Jagenda. Yes, he is our member, but he's okay. He still has his shop, a retail shop, and he's still operating as per the presidential directive. So let's remove Jagenda, number three, and replace with the maybe Rachel, who vends food in the arcade B in the town. Let's replace, and you do that. It should be as smooth as that. Unless you're telling me at that community level, the leaders don't have authority to drive the agenda in their community.
Okay, and how about the issue of phone numbers? And now we talk about the NIN, but ultimately this money is actually going to come to my phone.
Yes,
that's the end of it. The money has to come to my phone. Now I am a Frank Mugabe, but this number is not written in my name. Maybe because at the time when I was buying this line, I didn't have a national ID, I didn't have a NIN, I didn't have anything. So I bought it through somebody, through another agent, but it's my phone. Nzemanyi password yayo, and when the money comes, they'll like receive it here. There are those issues also of those people who have those inconsistencies. How are you managing those?
If there is an inconsistency between your national ID details and the registration details on your phone number, then it's a problem. That we need it cleaned. Those we are referring them to, there is going to be a process where Post Bank will come with mobile vans and pay such people after verification. But those whose details on the ID match their phone details, registration details, those are the people who are going to be paid first. The others, I don't have a NIN, but I fall in the category, oh, my details don't match with my phone, my ID and phone details don't match. Those need to be cleaned out and verified by the local residents for payment through a face-to-face process where the Post Bank will come with their mobile vans and pay that category of persons. So that's how we are handling that.
Have you included the leaders of these? Because I'm looking at the categories of persons that include the bus taxi drivers, the conductors, baggage carriers, wheelbarrow pushers, the tolls, traffic guides, etc., etc. That's point number 9 from the Minister's communication.
Yes.
Border riders, special hire taxis, and Uber. Are you including them? Because we're also imagining Mugabe is a Uber operator. Jagenda is a taxi, what do they call them, special hire driver somehow, but maybe the village does not even know. They only see me drive out my car, and just because I even drive a car, I am doing Uber or special hire, to the villagers I may look very rich, but I have no business now because one, my car is not permitted to be on the road. So that means I can't do any business. I could go pick people, take them anywhere, but I can't now drive because my car is not allowed to be on the road. But the people who know me, if they read Mugabe, a taxi, but it's anyway, a man who owns a car, how would you even want to parade for 100,000? Have you included the their associations or their leaders in a way, because these people know how they come together, how they group themselves. Or you've left it to the village and the town clerk to see who amongst the taxi drivers, the special hire, the Uber operators benefits?
Actually, the point you're raising goes to emphasize why the town clerk is key in this activity. Because like I said, the town clerk has these lists. Like you're hitting, we may have a vendor in town who is not known in their village, by
As
the
a
way.
vendor in town?
As a vendor.
Exactly.
They see you, go
Move
to
out
your
in the
home,
morning.
you move out. Nobody actually knows what you do in
You
town.
leave as early as 5 when everybody is still
They
in.
just know.
You come back as late as 9 or 10.
Exactly. So that's why we said, since we are targeting these people who have been affected in their daily incomes in urban areas, let's start with the town clerk's lists. Town clerk takes the lists down to the village, and then there is a combing done at that level. So those people, yes, they will be there, and they have to be recognized through the archives or database that is available, and they will have to be listed for support.
Okay. I've also had taxi people quarreling and saying, you know, they have also different organizations.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Utrada, Kotsa, Sjuinan, they have several. There are even those that are called Entebbe Road or Entebbe taxi operators and stuff like that. And the challenge here, Mr. Mugabe, that I want you to help us understand, especially in Kampala, where Mugabe is a taxi tout and maybe even doesn't want people to know that he does that. When he moves from his house in the morning, he comes to Kampala, he gets to the park, not motoka. But the people there, he even doesn't want to look like he does that. And those that he works with know that actually Mugabe is really struggling now. He's one of those vulnerable persons. But the village doesn't know.
Yes, but in the situation we're in, that's why we're saying this process should be led by the town clerk and the local leaders. They should be able to make judgment. Where there are issues of confidentiality, the local leaders have the role to play that confidentiality role. But also, you're not going to avoid your name being on the list with what you do if you really want to benefit from this fund. Because like we say, this is taxpayers' money, and therefore the process has to be as transparent as possible, and that's what we are trying to achieve. And therefore, sometimes it will require that you will have to have your name there, and people will have to know what you do to justify your inclusion on the list. My friend, when you're sick and you go to a doctor in a private room, if the doctor tells you undress, you'll have to undress. Because they'll have to do a check on you.
If you don't cooperate, you die.
If you don't cooperate, it's
die.
another case. So in this particular situation also, our colleagues who may want to remain confidential, yes, we are considering the issues of confidentiality, but there has to be a verification done. So you need to open up at a certain point, and not just opening up with words, but with some sort of verification. That's why we're saying the lists that are submitted to the town clerk have to be double-checked with what the community members are saying.
Let's talk about the breach of trust that people have continuously developed amongst, rather to government. They think that when government is doing anything, then there are credibility issues, issues of trust, and quite a number of those. And people really think, and the argument out there is, if you fail to give us a kawunga, for those of us who got a kawunga, we actually got bad kawunga and bad beans. How sure are we that this time round you'll actually manage and do it to us? These are all issues. And don't you think it's a test to government now that we even are starting to implement the parish development model, that this would give us a mock exercise over how we're going to manage the parish development model? And are we using it even as a mock exercise for the PDM?
Thank you so much. It's actually a mock exercise, because in the parish development model, power is an implementation of programs is being taken down from where we have been at sub-county at that level to
cascaded
down. And who is in the lead? Who is in the lead? It's the leaders at that level. And who is government? You see, when we are talking about government has done this, government, who is government? Government is one, yourself. Two is your local representative. That's the government. If you want a service from government, there is somebody in the system allocated that responsibility, allocated that duty. If you're saying we are extending money to a certain category of vulnerable persons at that level, they have leaders. You've talked about TOTs. They have their leaders who generate their lists, and they have where they deposit those lists. Where they deposit those lists in the town clerk's office, he also has a team he works with. So that's the government. And therefore, that's why we should desist from the blanket accusations of saying government has not done this. They are duty bearers. Let's learn to hold duty bearers accountable. If you say a councillor at my village, you have a duty to play. Whereas me as a common man, I have a responsibility to play. But you as my leader, I elected you, you have a duty to play. I should be asking you questions. I'm supposed to get this service. Why am I getting it? Now, as a councillor, I also have a leader above me that I can approach and ask the same question until I get to the top. Even before we get to the president, there are leaders in the chain we should be put into task at first. For example, when the president spoke, he said he's directing the OPM, Office of Prime Minister, and Minister of Gender to look at the issue and ensure that a vulnerable package is extended. My permanent secretary, Mr. Agri David Chibenge, for him, that was enough order. He got working. Actually, you would like to know, once the president spoke, it was a Friday. By Sunday, we had a paper ready, a position paper ready. He summoned the team, a small team, to work on the process of extending this sort of. And it is actually the Minister of Gender that made a proposal to Office of the Prime Minister that this time round, let's do a cash transfer. And the OPM and Cabinet adopted the proposal.
So the cash transfer is a proposal, and it was a proposal by the Minister of Gender?
Yes, it was our team that generated it. So you see, that level of action is what we need to see from everybody who is in a position of offering a service to people. Until we click that, our people are going to remain complaining so much. And it pains so much when people are complaining. Some of the would-be duty bearers pretend to be standing with the people. Yet actually, if you looked at it critically, that person should be playing a role to solve the issue they are talking about. But they forego that role and instead run to the cameras to try and posture and say, you know, for us we are clean people, but somebody else is failing us. No, there is a level of engagement. If a town clerk is not engaging with you rightly, you have a mayor. Beyond the mayor, you have the executive director, KCCA. If you're not getting services and responses at that level, you have a ministry. So all those channels of communication and response are there for redress. So this is what our leaders need to, we need to get conscious about. Maybe the issue of patriotism, issue of nationalism, should come live in our leaders. That beyond just if you're leading people, you're leading them off a service. But you don't work alone. There's a team you work with from down to the upper level. And follow it. Go to these offices. I like Honorable Balio Mwezo. He came to our office. Mwezo.
Of Nakawa.
Yes. I met him in the Ministry of Gender Corridors last week. And he was asking about the money for the youth, for the women. I said, you're doing the right thing.
As a representative
of the people, you're seeking information. That's very good. We sat him down and gave him a package. We said, please, this is how things are done, and your contact person will be this person. But also we have a chain. If you're not getting response at the lower level, there will be another person to come in if everything has failed at that level. So I expect that Honorable, in the subsequent engagements, he's going to speak from a point, speak and act from a point of knowledge that is going to help his constituencies to benefit from these services much better.
Okay. How shall I know, Mr. Mugabe, that the disbursement has started and the $100,000 that has come onto my phone is actually the money from government?
This money is going to be designated. The telecom companies, you see when you receive a text message, there are details there. It will have specific details that shows you that this is money from government and you are receiving it as part of the COVID relief package.
Okay, so that has been done. That if I receive a message, I'll be able to know that my Nabanja money has actually come.
Exactly. In the details.
We now call it Nabanja money.
Yes.
The details will be there.
Yes. The
okay,
details
so
will be
nobody should actually say government yabawadde ezozola banze emupinze nazikuwadde.
Tekisoboka. Kubanga our money will have very specific details that it is a COVID relief disbursement you have received.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Mugabi. Our time is running out, but finally, our parting shot is what do you think you need to tell the people now, look into that camera, and what they think, what needs to be done as we prepare for tomorrow and Thursday, because we really need to get the money, those who are supposed to get it.
Dear Ugandans, let's calm down. For those people who are already getting agitated, let's calm down. It's a simple thing. Let's act like a community. A community acts together. If you left this village and went to another village where people cooperate and work together, they would identify you and say this person is new in this village because they work in the same way. So when you give them a list to come for their own benefit, you will see that they have sat down together and they are looking at the list and working on cleaning it together. This is what we should be doing. The moment you do that, you'll be helping yourself and your community to get the service faster. But if you resort to violence, tendency of tearing the lists, then you're not helping yourself actually. You're instead delaying the service reaching yourself. Because for us, we are going to go ahead and pay lists that are done and submitted. They will get their money.
Very good.
So let's get back to working together and sort the lists. We have that opportunity that they have given us the lists to look at them. Let's use it gainfully to benefit our people who are in need of this support. Okay.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Mr. Frank Mugabi, the Communications Officer from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development.
Thank you,
the ministry that is at the forefront of helping us manage the vulnerable relief from government, of course, alongside the Ministry of the Office of the Prime Minister. And we expect that for those that are ready to receive the money, starting tomorrow and before the end of this week, we need to hear some testimonies of people saying, Ezange nazifunye. And even when the ministry said you buy kaunga, buy buto, buy sabuni, buy all the things, once you have your money, Siria kaunga, will buy miwogo or whatever it is. But the beauty is let the money come. It's unfortunate that we're discussing relief as if it's not even relief. That's a big problem with Ugandans. And like you said, the longer we take discussing and doing all the things, we're actually delaying our own selves. And the days are counting down. And we do not know whether it's actually after 42, then we get back to normal business, or after 42, we'll have different issues and challenges. But I want to thank you so much for having allowed to join us. And please allow that next time we invite you, you'll still give us an opportunity to come back.
I will, sir. Thank you so much for hosting us.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Mr. Frank Mugabi. My name is Jagger Semakola Ziksoka. This will be, we'll stop it here for tonight, and just say we'll return tomorrow with Good Morning Uganda Extra. For God and my country, stay blessed, and good morning. Thank you very much.
A pleasure very much. Thank you so much.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Understanding this model.